It's Thursday, May 22nd, 2025, and you are listening to the new Rivian Clubs of America podcast. Hey everybody, what's going on? It's Zach Winnick, host and producer of the Rivian Clubs of America podcast. I am also the community director and a longstanding member of the Bay Area Rivian Club, the very first Rivian Clubs of America chapter, as you will actually learn in the interview that I'm bringing you today. I had the opportunity a couple days ago to sit down with Arron Apperson, who is the executive director of Rivian Clubs of America, and we had a fantastic discussion on the history of RCA, how he ended up getting into the world of the Rivians, and a couple other cool little things that popped up as well. He does offer some really cool tips and tricks also towards the end of the podcast, but I'm not going to spoil any of that. And actually, I'm going to shut up and let you listen to the interview. So here we go. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Rivian Clubs of America podcast. As always, I'm your host, Zach Winnick, and I am joined today by a very special guest and somebody I'm extremely excited to talk about. And to kick off this new version of the Rivian Clubs of America podcast, I have invited our executive director, Arron Apperson, to join me. And here he is. So how you doing, Arron?
I'm doing well, Zach. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too. It's been a minute, so it's really weird. We live in the same town basically and never see each other. So thanks for taking the time to come hang out with me for a little bit and to kind of educate everybody on what Rivian Clubs of America is and to give a little more insight into yourself and your Rivian journey. And let's just have a great discussion.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So let's just dive right into it. What originally drew you to owning a Rivian?
Wow. So that is a loaded question, but I think it will start with my partner and I, we met when she was a director of the Campus Center for Appropriate Technology in Humboldt way back in the early 2000s. And so when electrification of vehicles was coming online, kind of in the 2010, 2012s, we started looking at updating our older vehicles, and we decided on the Chevy Spark. We couldn't afford a Tesla at that point, and we thought that the Chevy Spark was going to be the poor man's Tesla. So that was 2014. Yeah, absolutely. And we, we love the Spark. We still have it. We've got 170,000 miles on the vehicle. We waited for the DC fast charger to come out. And we had a great time. We drove that thing all over California. We attempted to get up to Portland at one point in time and were denied just outside of Redding. That's a story for a much longer interview, but, fast forward, and we, our family had grown a little bit, and we were starting to look for a vehicle that could help us do kind of more of the fun adventures that we were doing. We like to camp. We like to go out during the summers and take advantage of the wonderful area that we live in. And we were looking around, and we were kind of tossing around the idea of a Model Y maybe, because we could fit skis in it, and kind of you could get a rack for it, kind of. The Mustang had just come out. We were kind of looking at that. We were kind of throwing our net kind of wide because we knew we had gone electric and we didn't really want to go back. And we happened upon Rivian one day, the website and YouTube video and whatnot, and it seemed to check like all the boxes, right? It had more than enough storage. It could be used for camping because we put on large camping group campsites with lots of people, and we'll bring cooktops and things like that to be able to cook for 20 plus people. And so you need a bed to be able to haul all the stuff in. Our kid was, getting to be older and getting to be bigger, and we knew that he and all of his friends all played football, so we needed a good sized cab to fit them all in. The gear tunnel was amazing from an idea of you could put the snowboard and skis in there or whatever else, and just on and on and on. And it seemed to tick all the boxes. And this was probably 2020 when we were kind of really looking at everything. And so we put some money down on it. We put some money down on the Ford Lightning, and just kind of were waiting and waiting to see which was going to come in first. And then luckily in May of 2022, May 21st of 2022, so I'm almost to my 3-year Rivianversary, a few days out, I got a call. And they said, your truck is ready, and come down to the service center down off of Utah and pick it up in the Bay Area. And so, yeah, we did that on the 21st of 2022.
Well, happy almost anniversary. I just celebrated mine yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. My first year. So,
first year. That's great.
First year. Can you believe that?
That's awesome.
Yeah, like everything that I have done like in the past year has only been in 1 year. Like I was sitting there thinking about it the other day, and I'm just like, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like it's been like 3 years, like yourself. And now you and I both have something in common.
Yes, we do.
I believe now we have the rarest color that is still being produced on our R1Ts.
I do believe so. Although I did see a red R1T pickup truck pass me on 35 today.
I was not on 35.
Nope. He's got a taller bed rack than I do.
Okay.
But I waved at him, and he waved back. And so,
nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. It's very rare that I'll get somebody to wave back. I had somebody yesterday, and I actually honestly think that it was because we were both turning left at a light, and we almost ran into each other because we were waving at each other. Like we made eye contact. It was really funny.
You sure they weren't going, no, don't come in closer.
Yeah, no, don't come near my truck. No, please. Maybe. I don't know. Awesome. So what led you to start like Rivian Clubs of America? How did that idea like come about? Because it's kind of a bit of a journey to go from not knowing which Rivian, like if you're going to get Rivian or Lightning or like, and then to kind of have like this huge organization with, over 700, almost 800 members across the country. And now like outside of the US also technically.
Yep. Technically we are Rivian Clubs of America, and we are treating it as all the America. It's not just, the Kraton that we're sitting on. Well, it didn't just start with me, right? In the dark years of the pandemic, Rivian was, on a lot of our minds, and there were production delays because of supply chain issues and all the things that were happening at the time. And a lot of people were starting to congregate online, whether it be like Rivian forums or all the different Rivian kind of internet sites. There were YouTube videos coming out. There were podcasts and videos coming out from Rivian Stories. There was Rivian itself releasing information, kind of dribs and drabs. And there was a pretty, I would say, an extensive online community that had grown up because we were all stuck inside. Like I was teaching classes during the day, and my niece was living here. My 2 nieces were living here. My son was going to school. We were all going to school inside my 1,000 square foot house. And like, that was my lifeline out to talk to people outside
of your bubble. Yeah.
And all of us were really excited about these Rivians that we had never, some people had seen them at an auto show. Some people had like actually gotten to be up and close to them, but most of us we saw pictures. My partner and I, we went to the first mile event that they had up in Sonoma, and we got to ride in one, and that was that was fantastic. And so there was this community that kind of rose up during that time period of people who were all really interested in the vehicle. And the guys at Rivian Stories did a really great job with their community. And it was super interactive. Lots of people were talking. Jazzy Jeff was on there. They had a whole bunch of people come on and talk with them at different times. And Jimmy McGovern and that crew kind of started tossing around the idea of having clubs, having regional clubs, and what would that look like, having a regional club, and how would we get together? Because all of us were really attracted to the idea that this was a vehicle that was going to let us escape, go out, have adventures, not be stuck at home. All of us were sick of being stuck at home.
Yeah.
And so we wanted to go do that. And we had found other people who were also interested in doing that. And so that's kind of where the genesis came from. And in that group of people was Scott Lunt and Ryan Reel. Both of them are out of Colorado. And most people will know Scott Lunt as Rivian Dad, and he was doing the videos and releasing stuff. And he got his Rivian fairly early. Jimmy got his fairly early. And it was just every time somebody got a Rivian, there was a lot of celebration around it. And people wanted to come and hang out, and people wanted to see them and touch them and ride in them or drive them. And it was a time period where those of us that were lucky enough to get them early really wanted to share the excitement, because it is driving a spaceship. It is a phenomenal vehicle, and it is so much fun to drive, and it is so much fun to launch it, and it is so much fun to go off-roading with it and go through mud that's all the way up to the windowsills, and it's an incredible vehicle, and we were sharing that. And so out of kind of that primordial hanging out on the internet and starting to go out and share this vehicle that we were getting in little bits and pieces across the country with other people, started the idea of the clubs. And so under Rivian Stories, we started to organize ourselves, and there was, all the main clubs that are essentially part of Rivian Clubs of America now, were kind of started in that Rivian Stories online world. But the thing that we wanted to do to differentiate ourselves was we wanted it to be about being in person, putting on events, being there together in person, and building community through.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think that's how I initially found out about RCA, was actually through Rivian Stories. That was Rivian Forums and Rivian Stories were the first two places that I found. And then both of those have like a Bay Area section, but the Bay Area section on Rivian Stories was more active. And that's where I met like Dan and CJ of the Bay Area chapter, and saw that they were doing events and things. And literally I picked up my truck on May 18th, which was a Saturday. And literally the next Saturday, I was down in San Jose standing in a parking lot in front of a little brewery / cafe, talking to 7 or 8 other Rivian owners who I'd never met before in my life. And now like 3 or 4 of them are like really good friends. So yeah, it all started from that one little like interaction, or like just even like seeing an event. And yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah. Jonathan and Daryl were the first 2 people from Rivian Stories that I was able to share my Rivian with. And we met at a brewery here in San Francisco, and they got to come and look at it. Both of them were waiting for their S's, so they had to wait a long time. But they were, they were really keen and really interested, and like, those are great guys that I've built a really good relationship with. And the next kind of outing was a small outing at Ocean Beach in the parking lot, and a whole bunch of people showed up. There were a few more Rivians at that point that came and joined us, and then we had something down in Montera, and it just kind of blossomed from there. And speaking of CJ, the first Alice's, and we have another Alice's coming up in the Bay Area.
Yep.
The first Alice's, was it the first Alice's? No, it was the second Alice's. CJ just happened to be coming through there.
Oh, wow.
Because I think him and his fiance at the time were going up to look at a winery that's up there that they eventually got their reception for their marriage at.
That's funny.
They happened to come by, and it was like the day that they were getting their Rivian or the day before they got their Rivian. It was like this really like weird, like they showed up and they were just astounded because, you know, there are 20, 30 Rivians up there when we have those Alice's events. It's a takeover. And he, I don't think he'd ever seen that many Rivians in one place.
I don't think anybody at that point had seen that many.
and it was, you know, that was kind of the thing that got him hooked into Rivian clubs. And so and I think that happened, you know, for Jimmy down in Florida and a bunch of the other people that started the clubs early. They just started having really good events where people would show up and they just had a great time, and it just kind of blossomed from there.
Is there a specific moment or event or anything where you realized that, like, hey, we're on to something with this Rivian Clubs of America? Like, this is really starting to take off. Like, was there any like specific memory or event or anything that stuck out or that sticks out to you?
I mean, I think there were glimpses of it in lots of different corners of the United States. And I really do want to credit Jimmy and Scott and Ryan for really stepping up and going, okay, this is something that's real. Let's, you know, figure out how to make it real, and what do we have to do? We have to write some bylaws. Well, to do the bylaws, we got to look about talking to a lawyer. If we're going to do a car clubs come with some insurance concerns, and like they started to kind of piece together what was going to be needed, and they really kind of got the ball rolling. And I came on after they had kind of initially started that ball rolling, and they asked me to kind of be a cheerleader and help them make it happen.
Awesome. So how did you, it's like basically like all of you guys just kind of got together and then just like, hey, we're going to do this. This is how we're going to do it. This is like the structure that we want to have. And then, you know, like, because basically like I know from like all the work that I've been doing with the organization as well, that like we welcome anybody. You know, if you're in an area that has a bunch of Rivians and we don't have a chapter, like, hey, create your own, we'll help you. Like, was that always something that you guys wanted to do from the beginning, or is that something that's just kind of how it evolved? Or I think
we were all trying it out on our own and realizing that together we were stronger. We could communicate over the web, and we could give each other helpful hints. And, oh man, I really messed up. I didn't call ahead to tell people that we were coming, and the establishment was overwhelmed when we got there, and it kind of made it bad. Like, how do we fix that? How do we do that better next time? And so we were able to share those kind of tidbits because we're excited. We want to just show up to places, and we weren't necessarily thinking of all the other bits and pieces that a car club needs to do when they roll in on a business or 6 businesses, and the impact that we have. Or you go into a camping site, and what does that look like, and all of that. And so you know, we were originally, there were a lot of people that all kind of started their clubs all at the same time, and we were all sharing that information, and we were, you know, helping people in different places. Hey, you wanted to start one, what, you know, we did these things. Like one of the very first things that Jazzy did, and Jazzy's out in New York, is he made a little postcard and he like listed all the things that he usually talks about when people ask him questions about Rivians. And it was a double-sided postcard, really nice picture. I probably have it around here somewhere as memorabilia. And like he would just go to EV events. And one of the first events that we did it for the Bay Area Club was go to an EV event to show off the Rivian. And it was the only Rivian that was there. And there was a Mustang there and a Tesla and let's see, what else was there? There was a Bolt there, because it was just this, we belong in a larger ecosystem of people who are trying to move the transportation world forward in a particular direction. And while like within the club, like most of us are Rivian enthusiasts, we're also electric car enthusiasts. And there's a lot of us that are, some of us belong to the Porsche Club, and some of us belong to the Ferrari Club, and some people belong to the Saab Club, and like there are people that belong to motorcycle clubs. Like there's a ton of gearheads in here. There's a ton of people like CJ that are off-roaders at heart, and then there's a ton of people that are just, hey, we want to go out and go have a good time camping and go out and see Bowman Lake or wherever, and really that band of leaders for all those different clubs kind of understood that there was something that needed to bind us all together, and that we were stronger together. And so there were lots of Zoom calls, there were lots of Zoom meetings, there was late night meetings, there were, just back and forth. And at some point in time, Rivian started to hear that we were doing stuff, and they wanted to get involved, and just in a support role, because they really realized that a lot of what we were doing was really positive for them, right? People going out, having a good time, and bringing the Rivians out into the world was doing more advertising than they ever had a budget for. And so they started saying, hey, well, are you guys going to do something? Maybe we'll send you some stickers or something, or, whatnot. And it kind of developed from there. Is then they started doing their road trips, right? Rivian started doing their road trips, and then they'd call me and they'd be like, do you know anybody that's in Utah? Or do you know anybody that's in Arizona? And I was able to direct them to different people in different places. And, and when they opened their first space, they opened it in New York, and Jazzy was able to get together a whole bunch of people there, and they all kind of paraded in, and that kind of became the tradition of how they opened spaces was with us kind of leading the charge, so to speak, and helping them open their spaces. So I mean, it really kind of grew organically out of a whole bunch of online friends who wanted to get together with people in person and just have a great time.
Yeah, and that's so true. And I love that, RCA has been around for what, 3-4 years now? And
so I'm coming up on my third Rivianversary, and it probably started I think technically we probably incorporated in 2023. We didn't start our memberships until 2024.
Yep, because that was one of the first ones.
We're just coming up on our 1 year anniversary of actually having memberships.
Tomorrow, actually, if I remember correctly.
It's tomorrow.
Yeah, the 20th.
Although mine's already been run through because I was early in the testing of the system. So,
yep.
But
yeah, I got an email earlier today from Romy asking me for the member list, and she's like, "We're coming up on 1 year. I need to get all this stuff out." So I sent that off to her. Yeah, no, it's crazy, and like it's awesome to see that like that ethos, I guess, is still there, and our relationship with Rivian is still there, and actually probably a little bit better because they do a lot more with us now, which is awesome. And like you were saying, well, like the spaces, and when they open a new space, like I'm sitting here drinking out of my San Jose mug, and I was debating between either that one or the San Francisco one because I thought it would be very appropriate. But like, those two were like, those were the first two spaces that I got a chance to participate in. And like, not just as like a Rivian owner, but as a organizer as well. And I'm very thankful that it was a very easy process. Like, so I can't even imagine like what it was like back then, like at least trying to work with them or, even like them trying to figure things out too. Cause like it was a whole new thing for a lot of people on that team I know as well.
It was all brand new to all of us. And we were all just trying to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah. And sometimes it still feels like we're trying to figure out how to make it work.
It's still brand new and we're still trying to make it work.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great because it's a great learning process and we get to have a lot of fun in the middle of doing that as well. And that makes it even more fun, at least for me. I'm sure it stresses a lot of other people out, but it's, yeah. Let's see. Let me grab one of the questions that I have for you on my list. All right. I like this one. In your opinion, what makes Rivian Clubs of America different than other car clubs?
Well,
if there is anything.
I mean, you could go out with a Porsche club and you're essentially stuck on a road or a track. You could go out with an off-road club and you're essentially stuck in off-road mode. But with Rivians, we can do both. Right? We can drive down to Johnson Valley in our rigs, go off-roading, air down, go off-roading. At the end of the day, we can air back up and we can drive home. And we don't have to have a trailer. We don't have to do all of those things. And so the versatility of the vehicle makes it different. I think the other thing that makes it different is that it's electrified, right? So at its very core, one of the things that brings us all together is this belief that we need to transition away from fossil fuels. And that transition doesn't have to be the one where, okay, so nobody drives anymore. Nobody flies anywhere anymore. Nobody takes a train anywhere. Like, no, we still want to do the things that are fun to do. We just don't want to produce more carbon emissions than we absolutely have to. And so I think that makes us different than any other car club, right?
Yeah.
Because most other car clubs, people are revving their engines and they're wearing the perfume of exhaust and their hands are getting greasy, especially if you're in, like you could be in a Triumph club where you try and go for a 10-mile drive and like 6 of the 10 cars break down at some point in time and you got to like fix them. And that's fun. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I've had plenty of ICE vehicles that were vintage and needed to be coaxed along on a ride. And there's some pleasure that comes from that. But these vehicles and the people that are going out and doing this are more thinking about the future and like how can going out and having fun be sustainable, right? And I think that's a huge difference. And it's not to take away from all the other car clubs. It's just that's one thing that I think sets us apart.
Yeah, for sure. And so is that what kind of led to RCA partnering with like Tread Lightly or?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And in a large way, it also, the relationship with Tread Lightly came about, one, because Rivian had partnered with Tread Lightly early on. And Matt Gaskins, who was a Rivian employee, helped plan the Transamerica drive that Rivian did early on, and is a consummate off-roader. Came and joined us, and then he joined Tread Lightly. But when you go off-roading, right? I don't know how much you know about Tread Lightly from an organization standpoint, but the long and short of it is it originally started as a part of the Forest Service.
I did not know
trying
that.
to help people understand what the Forest Service needed of people that were using the forest to do to make sure that the trails could stay open, right? Because there's always a give and take. If you're going to go out into nature, what you're doing out there has an effect, and if you have too big of an effect, they got to close the road so that nature can recover, right? As long as nature's got enough pieces, it can recover. But if you go out there and you continually dig a hole, nature's not going to fill that hole in very quickly. And so it kind of grew out of a public relationship between the Forest Service and off-road groups, and then it became its own entity. And the idea is, it is a way for the off-road community to maintain relationships with the Forest Service and the federal government, and make sure that we have access to the lands that we all love to go camping in and we all love to go four-wheeling through, and making sure that everybody that's out there four-wheeling knows that airing down your tires is much better for the environment. It's much better for your vehicle. It's better for the trails. They don't have to be maintained as much. When you drive through water courses, you don't make huge splashes. You go through them nice and easy, and picking up your trash as you're leaving. Like I don't know if you got to go camping when you were a kid, but when in the 70s, when I went out and camped in different places, there was trash everywhere. And now sometimes there's trash, but it's a lot less. And I think that's because the people that go out and enjoy and use the Forest Service the most really started to take on that responsibility of taking care of it, right? Because the Forest Service is never going to have enough money. There's not going to be enough rangers,
especially now. But
there's not going to be enough Forest Service people to do the work for millions of us to go out there and enjoy it. It's kind of our responsibility, and Tread Lightly helps kind of educate that and spread that message. And it's a message that I think that fits really nicely with the ethos of Rivian Clubs of America, because we also want to make sure that our kids and our grandkids and our grandkids can still go out and enjoy the views that we get to do. The Bay Area Club is looking at a really special trail to adopt. And trail adoption is something that Tread Lightly can facilitate, right? They have the connections with the Forest Service and the off-road clubs. And there's lots of clubs. There's clubs down in southern Colorado and Utah that adopted a trail just to save a frog, right? And that's not what you usually think about when you think about people going off-roading, but they've really transformed their club into that's their species. That's their thing that they're protecting. When they go out, they make sure that they are, and they probably even help maintain the trails enough that the Forest Service can go out and do their counts, their biologic counts, and their transects and everything. And so I think the relationship with Tread Lightly is one that is perfect for the people that are, maybe new to off-roading, that don't know all of the things that you need to know when you go out into the woods, and also the old timers that do know how to go out there, but maybe they have some practices that they need to think about, because they want to continue to go out and use those roads, and it takes all of us taking care of those roads to make us able to use those.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, one of my favorite events that I've been to was actually out with the Sierra Nevada Club, and actually their first of the 3 yearly cleanups that they do out at Genoa Peak out in Lake Tahoe. Like, that was like one of my favorite things. And I if I remember correctly, Ben, who for those that don't know is the one of the leaders of that chapter, said that we got, I think it was like 300 or 400 pounds of trash that we picked up from the one event that I went to. I won't give away the secrets of how we got to that number. But I mean, we found mattresses, we found the most random things just in the parking lot at Genoa Peak, like at the base of the mountain. And then I think also about halfway up, there's like a open space, and like people were using it for like
target practice and shooting. And so like there were broken bottles and cans and clay pigeons. And we spent like an hour there just picking up all the little pieces of everything. And like, it really spoke to me. And like, that's what kind of, it was very, I guess, early on. Cause I think we did that I think I went to one of the second to last one. So I think it was like August. So I'd only had my truck like 2 or 3 months. It was the first time I'd ever gone off-roading in my life. And if you want to consider that off-roading, because I mean, I guess it is because it was on a trail. So like, it was just, I don't want to say life-changing experience, but it definitely made me like rethink a lot of things. And, you know, I've been to national parks before. I've been through state forests, like, and you go and you're like, oh, it's really pretty and it's really nice. And like, you see the signs like, stay out of here. We're trying to like preserve this or regrow this. And you're like, oh, okay, that's nice. But then to actually like be the person that goes out and is doing that or is helping that, it kind of gives you a really neat and new perspective.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah, a lot of thanks to RCA, and obviously tread lightly in following those principles and all of that. Otherwise, I would have had no clue. So, all right. Let's see. What else? We covered a lot of what I was going to ask, just all in the couple of sections. Like, it's been kind of nice. All right. So let's get into a little bit of some behind the scenes, if you will. Let's talk about how the sausage is made.
Nobody wants to know how sausage is made.
Yeah, I don't want to know. I just had sausage for dinner. I don't want to know how it was made. It was delicious, and it had pineapple in it and bacon.
Oh, nice.
So we're good. Yeah. I guess it's not really like behind the scenes RCA. It's more like behind the scenes of yourself, and just kind of like, just so that we can kind of get to know you a little bit better and kind of get to know your role with RCA a little bit better and everything. So just so that way we can kind of see behind the beard, if you will. During the day, you're a high school teacher?
Yeah, I teach high school.
Awesome. So when obviously RCA is kind of like a side gig, hobby, whatever you want to call it, but it takes up a lot of time. Like, I know that you're always jumping on like Halo messages or sending text messages to the tech team, because I'm on all of them, or emails or whatever. So like, what keeps you motivated to stay to like lead RCA on top of like everything else that you've got going on in your life?
I think at a very base level, I think the thing that keeps me motivated is making sure that all of the leaders for all of the groups that are out there that are under the umbrella of the RCA have what they need to put on fantastic events. And that lots of people get to go out. And like you said, you went out to an event and all of a sudden, like, everything was different for you. And I think that's the motivating factor. Like, I'm behind the scenes and I'm making sure that the lights stay on, right? At a music venue, you've got people that are doing stuff behind the scenes. I've got a really good buddy that's a rigger. Nobody wants to think about what's keeping those speakers above their heads, but nobody wants those speakers to fall. And so you've got to have a really good rigger. And you never want to see the rigger, because if you see the rigger, you know there's something wrong.
Definitely a problem. Yep.
Like, they dress all in black. All the stagehands are all dressed in black all the time because they're not the show. The show is the events, and making it so that when Jimmy in Florida has an event and it goes off and people talk about it and they throw Instagram reels up and everything, that those things happen without anybody knowing what's happening, to make sure that those can happen. I think that is a motivating factor, making sure that this project that we started only a few years ago doesn't fail, right? Doesn't like just flop, because there's plenty of things that you try in life that are like, okay, that didn't work, on to the next thing. But this has got there are a whole lot of other people that this is working for. And so I think that's a big part of the motivation.
Awesome. What's one thing that either you've done with RCA or that you've seen like one of the other chapters or RCA leaders or anybody that surprised you, if anything?
Surprised me.
It surprised you, excited you, made you sit back and go like, oh, wow, okay.
I mean, I think there's been a lot of really kind of high points. And probably the most recent and tying back into like there's a certain amount of service community that Rivian Clubs of America engenders and that the people that belong to the Rivian Clubs of America kind of engender. And I think we would be remiss not to mention Ross down in LA.
Absolutely.
And the amount of work that he did after the wildfires down in LA.
Man, yeah. Him and Gene. Yeah.
Yeah, him and Gene and all the Southern California groups really kind of came together and provided support. And our vehicles were being used as trucks, right? To haul stuff to different locations, hauling water from one location to another, and making sure that people had access to water and people had access to food. And, that displacement that it displaced my niece. My niece goes to UCLA, and she, UCLA was right between the two fires. And so she came up here, but there were lots of people that didn't have a place to go. And Rivian Clubs of America and the LA chapter, San Gabriel chapter, Orange County, they all really stepped in and just pitched in when absolutely necessary. Right. And that's not surprising because I know who belongs to the Rivian Clubs of America, but I'm grateful that we're able to activate in those ways.
Yeah, that was
and early on. We activated to try and help find a transplant donor for a young girl who's one of the members' daughters, and there's those kinds of things that happen throughout all the events where we're all going out and having a great time, but something happens and we all come together and we really make it work for our communities and for our larger communities, right? I think that's always been kind of in the back of my mind. Something that I've wanted to do is make sure that, we drive these large batteries around every day, and you and I live in a place that has earthquakes, and wildfire and tornadoes and all of these things. And Jimmy lives in a place where there's hurricanes, and Scott's in a place where there's avalanches and snowstorms and blizzards, and we all live in places where there are natural disasters that happen. And how cool would it be to already have an organized group that has access to, whether it be medical knowledge, because we have a bunch of nurses that are part of our crew, and doctors, or people that are specialists with, electronics, or even just showing up to a place. And I can't say for certain, but I kind of feel like Ross at one point in time just had somebody go out and take a bunch of power strips and plug it into the car and let people charge their phones, right? Because in a natural disaster where you burn power lines down, there's no power, and yet everybody still wants to be able to be on their devices. And our massive batteries that we drive around can really fill in that gap. And then, you add into that, like with the ham radio and GMRS radio capabilities of our vehicles, where we could put out a really strong signal, we can be a touchstone between EMS and the communities that they need to reach. Because, I know living here in San Francisco, we have about 300 firefighters at any one point in time. And that's not going to be enough when we have a massive earthquake. And so they have a program here called Neighborhood Emergency Response Training, and a NERT. And you go through NERT, and there are different things that you can do to help your neighborhood in an event of an emergency. Like, they're going to need people to go in and make sure that each house doesn't have a gas leak. If it does have a gas leak, you're going to have to turn off the gas. They're going to need to have ham operators, because the ham operators are going to be communicating with the command center. They're going to need to have, nurses who are not necessarily at a hospital, or people that are trained in first aid, being able to do some of the triage. Check buildings for structural damage and paint the big X with, whether you've been in there, when you were in there, what you saw, what dangers are in there, what kind of human casualties there may be. And like being able to respond with that with a community that's already tight knit, because we go and we hang out and we have a good time, and we have very capable vehicles. One of the things that set there was a Chevrolet dealer in San Francisco, and I want to say it was Ellis Chevrolet, and they, in 1906, when the earthquake hit in San Francisco, it was here, and they had to essentially use dynamite to blow up buildings and blow as much oxygen away from the fires as possible to limit the fires that were happening, because there were gas mains everywhere that were busted and on fire. At that point in time, our fire department was still running horse and water trucks. So the horses were pulling the water trucks. So the problem was there was so much rubble that the horses couldn't get through without seriously injuring themselves. They had several horses break their legs, and they're like, "Oh, I don't know what we're going to do." And the Chevrolet dealer here in San Francisco said, "Take these automobiles." 1906. Like, you're thinking like, really early versions of cars.
Yeah.
And they were able to drive through the rubble. They were able to get out and use them. And that made that particular business just take off. Right?
Awesome. Yeah.
And in the spirit of that, Ross was helping out with fires and doing all that. And Rivian loaned a couple of their vehicles to the first responders and to the people that were doing the kind of the emergency services at that point. And so that shows that kind of synergy that we can have, and that impact that we can have as a group of people who care.
Yeah.
And we just happen to have large batteries that we drive around and can
exactly,
do things that lots of vehicles can't. The clearance that we have allow us to clear, rocks that most cars get hung up on, and so.
No, I always think about that, and like it's like the worst thing you could possibly think about. But like, I grew up in California as well. I grew up in LA. I lived through the Northridge earthquake in 1994, so I've seen it firsthand. I'm sure you were up here in '89 for the one that was here. But now that I have this truck, I'm like, I can go and like if they need people to help, like I have a vehicle that I'm in a better position than a lot of other people. And I would have never thought about that. I drove Jeeps for 10 years. Like I would have never thought in a million years to take my Jeep and go do that too. But, seeing people like Ross and the guys down in LA and Orange County and all that, like it was inspiring. And then to hear stories about people like on the East Coast too. Michael Cusick, who's out in North Carolina. So he was the guy with the Rivian that got submerged underwater and carried 100 feet and was covered in mud. He was out the next day after he recovered his vehicle doing hurricane cleanup and taking, medical supplies and food and water and stuff to people that were stranded on top of mountains or hills that couldn't get down because like there was debris. Like to the point where Rivian was like, "Hey, we're going to take your truck and we're going to check it out," even though like it was running fine. Take this R1T that's better than the one that you have and continue to do your work while we take your truck down to Georgia and, clean it up and fix it. And like, if anything needs to get done and just check it out. So between that and then obviously with the fires, like it's just super inspiring to like know that you're part of that community.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. And like I said, it's just something like me, not that I'm like, so self-absorbed that I don't think about other people and stuff like that. But like, never thought I would be capable of doing something like that, but now I am, and now I want to go do that. Like, I don't want to go do that, but like, you know what I mean? Especially,
but you can be activated by the people around you.
Yeah.
To help. Yeah. Right. You have, it's that rule 303, right? Do what you can for as long as you can, and help in the ways that you can. It's not, it's a little bit of that from each according to their abilities to each according to their needs amount. It's how do we, if you're going to form a community, sometimes communities need to come together to fix problems and help each other. And, that's when it's really important that you have that community already established. Yeah. It's hard to do that if you don't have that community already established.
Yeah.
But if you do, if you've gone out and you've gone camping with people and you've gone out and you've done first aid training, or you've done off-road training, or you've done radio training, or you've done, all these different things, and you're going out and you're hanging out, you go get pizza together, you go get coffee together, you go talk about your trucks. When that call comes in, then you're like, oh yeah, Ross needs help. Let's go help Ross. Or Jazzy needs help. Let's go help Jazzy. Or Scott needs help. Let's go help Scott. Let's go help somebody that we have a connection to. Right. That's the thing that community does. It builds those ties that bind us together. And I think that was something that, during COVID, we all kind of realized, we're all trapped in our houses. We don't really have that community binding that we had even just a week prior to lockdown. Like, I was out in the neighborhood going and talking to people, and all of a sudden you're not really talking to anybody else except for through this device here. And then we got out of lockdown and we got able to go out and do things. And then we had these fantastic vehicles and this fantastic community that had sprung up, and all of us wanted to go and do fantastic things. And I think that's the gestalt. That's the zeitgeist. That's the drive.
Yeah. And the one thing, just to kind of bring it back and be a little bit more positive as well, since we're trending that way, I love the fact that I can go almost anywhere in the country and have friends, people that I can legitimately call a friend there. And like, just as an example, like I was just down in LA recently, like the LA area, and I've collected t-shirts and mugs from every space in all of California, and I was missing 2. And only because one just opened, and now I have to go back and get another one, but that's a different story. But like, I put the bat signal out, so to speak, and I was just like, hey, I'm going to be in Irvine. I'm going to be in San Diego. Is there anybody around? And I actually had somebody come out and hang out with me for a couple of hours when I was in San Diego. And I had somebody else that wanted to come, but she got busy at work on the other side of town and wasn't going to be able to make it till later. But like, we made plans that the next time I come down that we're going to go hang out. And, I went to Vegas for the SoCal EVs event over November, December, the zero emissions run. And the Vegas club just happened to have been having an event on one of the nights that I was there. Actually, no, it was when I was out there for the Mint 400 because Ross went with me. And so I got to meet Rick and a couple of the other guys in the Las Vegas club. And it was just like, we'd never met each other in person. Ever. I've talked to them online. I've talked to them on video calls. And it was just like, we were old friends and, seeing each other for the first time, but not the first time. And it's just, it didn't like click in my head until this last trip when I went to Irvine and San Diego that like, I'm so fortunate. And I know other people out there in RCA and some of the other Rivian clubs and all that we have a community like this, not just RCA itself, but like the Rivian community as a whole. We're just one big family. And
yeah,
I had Teslas before that. I had one of the very first Teslas in Tennessee back in 2014. Didn't have a community like this. Tried to start one, didn't work. Like people were just kind of like, all right, no, I'm good. And it's just amazing to be a part of something like that. And then to have like that other aspect of it, like we were just talking about, where they become family. Like every single person that I know from RCA in the Rivian community, I consider part of my family. And I would literally do, if they called me up and say, hey, I need you to come down and help me, I would be there that day. I love it. And I know they would do the same for me. So it just speaks a lot to the community as a whole, but also kind of what we've all created here with RCA as well. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Yeah. All right, so I'm not going to try to take up any more of your time. We've been going on for about an hour, so just have some really quick, fun questions to kind of wrap this up with.
Okay.
All right. What out of all the off-road trails and everything that you've been on, which one is your favorite?
The next one.
Fair enough. Out of all the RCA events that you've been to, which one's your favorite, or even like a favorite moment that you've had while being the executive director of RCA, or even just like participating in anything RCA related?
I have been privileged to be able to go to the Optima Unplugged event for 2 years now. That's super special. Gary's Jamboree is super special. I've got a ton of memories, and being able to go and be on the top of the Sierras with a group of people and I love looking at rocks. I don't know if anybody else does, but looking at rocks and thinking about how California formed and all of that. And being out there in nature is just so much fun. But then going to the track that's in outside of Folsom, the HOV park that's right there. OHV Park.
Prairie City?
Prairie City. Yeah.
I remember what Folsom was.
And going on that track and putting the truck into drift mode and drifting around the track and then putting it in rally mode and seeing how it changes the dynamics of the vehicle. Those kinds of things are just special. They're absolutely special. And I carry them with me. Yeah.
So, I love it.
Yeah.
All right, this one's kind of a two-parter, and it can be the same thing if you want it to be. What do you think is the most underrated feature of a Rivian, either an R1T or an R1S? T, obviously, because you own one. And what is your favorite feature in your truck?
Okay. So right now, since the last time I was out off-roading, because I got to go hang out with the Build It and Break It group of engineers from Rivian in the desert, and watching how they drive the truck when they're racing it, I've started to try and incorporate using the drive interface screen a lot more, where I change the mode that I'm in all the time.
That's so funny. I do the same thing. I saw them at the Mint 400 doing the same thing.
I'm a block and a half away from the on-ramp. I'm going to hit it sport mode because I know that I'm going to get on the freeway and I may have to jump on it. I want to put it in sport mode. And then as soon as I'm in the fast lane, I put it in conserve, and then and I've got different settings for each of them. And, it's really become more interactive for me. And I really like the simplicity of driving it, because you can make it really simple. You can just put it in standard and put it in auto, so it goes up and down for you and all of that stuff, and just leave it and let it drive. But there's a little bit of the manual transmission person in me that likes messing with the controls and tuning it, and going between the hard, firm ride of the sport mode in its lowest setting to all-purpose mode, and having it be soft. And so I think that's the feature right now that's really kind of captured my attention, and I'm trying to utilize it more, because and I will not be ashamed to admit this, but I have passed 80,000 miles before I got to my 3-year Rivian anniversary on my truck. I've driven this truck a lot.
4,000 in the first year. I'm right there with you.
So, I think I'm on at least my third set of tires. And I've done a lot with it. Like and so I just love being able to go and explore, an OTA comes out and and I'm just like, oh, what's new? Let's go see this new thing, Oh, every once in a while I go back to the Driver Plus because I'm like, okay, have they fixed the thing that I'm not, it's never going to have the kinds of vision that I have as a driver because I'm looking, half a mile ahead and a half a mile behind me, and I'm the person that can do that because I've got the visual sensors for that.
Right.
So I find that it stops more abruptly than I would in given a traffic situation because I can see it coming a mile away. But I try it and I keep going back to, hey, and they're making it better. Like everything continues to get better. And so for me, the one thing that's the bit that I'm learning right now and the bit that I'm trying to think of, how would we do this across the clubs? How would we share that information? Like a driving tutorial of like, how do you switch and why do you want to switch? Like, we talked earlier about why you want to air down your tires when you're off-roading. Well, there's a reason you want to switch between all-purpose and standard when you're going to really jump on it and apply all the torque that you have. And what is that? Why do you want to do something like that and lower it into lower lowest and put it into sport mode rather than, why don't you want to jump on it when you're in conserve mode? And when you're thinking about and you're thinking ahead about driving, why does that make the experience so much better? And I think with lots of things in our lives, like these things that we have all around us, we get these things and they're out of the box, they start working. Have you seen how many YouTube videos there are on how to make this thing work differently than the way you think it needs to work? Or the little hidden features that you would have no idea that they're there unless somebody else who has experience with it, and our trucks are kind of like that. Like you can get in and you can drive it away. But that doesn't mean that you're going to get the best experience out of it. And I think that's a place where our clubs can kind of fill a role, fill a niche, because we're the people that are the enthusiasts. We're the people that are out driving our trucks all the time, pushing them in different ways and learning the capabilities and the limitations and sharing that with the new drivers. And that's something that I'm trying to cook in the background a little bit. So
I have a feeling I'm going to get involved with that at some point. It's okay. I'm here for it. I love it. I think that's a great idea. Just kind of have like a library of like things that people can reference and just like, oh, I didn't know that we could do that. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Because you're right. Like I always try to equate because people, especially in like the early days of like EVs, and I'm sure you got the same thing. They didn't quite understand that we're literally driving a computer on wheels. That's all that it is. And, how like we always have our phones with us. We always have our cars with us too. Like, especially here in California, we drive everywhere. Like there is no possible way to walk from point A to point B. So it's just another piece of equipment that we have to learn about. And there are those hidden features and there are those tips and tricks that you can learn from somebody else that's been using it either longer than you or uses it differently than you. And I'm 100% here for it.
Yeah, I just a little anecdote. I took a colleague from work to go do a lunch run and grab some lunch for our club that meets. And it's the first time he had been in my truck. Like he and I had known each other for a long time, but this was the first chance that he got. And his comment to me was, "Are you using your brake?" And he was surprised when I said, no, I'm one pedal driving. He's like, well, because I got into a Tesla and like I couldn't figure out that one pedal driving, and this is really smooth. And I was like, yeah, like it is really easy to feather that pedal and control your speed. And if you're looking ahead and you know how to do all the things, like it's so easy to make that thing drive so nice. You're not herky jerky with it. And it was one of those things where I know I've been learning it, and I know that I know that there's muscle memory, but for him, it was this brand new experience that he was like, he thought that electric vehicles with regenerative braking were like these kind of, they take off really quick and then they stop really quick and then and you don't have any control. And he was surprised that there was that much control through the accelerator, just the accelerator.
Just the accelerator. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like one of my favorite games to play is how can I make the accelerator pedal feel like I'm using the brake pedal?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the best.
And playing around with whether or not it's a high regen or normal regen or, low regen.
I don't do that. Like, it's on high 24/7. I just
you should play around with that. It's fun.
All right. And
in different modes, like, right, if you're in sport, you may not want to have that high regen. Maybe you want to have, maybe you want to go to the 2-pedal driving, and so you're using your left foot for your brake and your right foot for your accelerator, and you don't want to necessarily slow too much when you're coming into a turn. You want to have a little bit more control over it, and just saying, playing around with it.
I never thought of it like that. All right, see, I learned something new today too. Lesson 1, Arron talks about using regenerative braking. Awesome. All right. So I just think, you know what, one last question, just because I really like this question and I think it's a good way to end all of this. What is one word you can use to describe the RCA community?
I have to choose one word.
Just one.
There's so much.
I know.
I mean, we've talked for like an hour on this one subject.
Yeah. Sum it all up into one word.
How cheesy can I be?
Be as over the top as you want. I love it.
I want to say laughter. I just want to say laughter. What binds us all together, and you really know you're having a good time with people if there's a good chortle out there.
I like it. I can apply that to a lot of both negative and positive things that I've experienced. All right. Well, I'll wrap everything up because it's been over an hour, so this is great. Where can people go to learn more about RCA, or if they want to join, or if they want to start their own? I'll let you have the honors.
I think the first place to start is to go to RCA or RivianClubs.org. That's our website. That's where we run all the membership and everything, and we have chapters there that you can look and see if there's a local chapter. We've got a nice little map with all the chapters on it, and so if you're close, then you can hook up there. We also, with each of those chapters, have events for those chapters. There's also a national list of events that you can go to. Newly redesigned by the one and only Zach. And so with a lot of help from Halo's been great. And Halo's really the group that we're using now for our event kind of management system. And I think given those two kind of things, you can find a Rivian event that's near you and you can just come out. You don't have to be a member to come out. You can be an enthusiast. You can just go, hey, I'm just going to go kick the tires and poke around. But if you are whole hog and you want to join, we have several different membership levels, and take a look. That's one way to join. If you are in an area and you already have a group of people that all have Rivians and you're like, yeah, let's join the RCA, you can reach out to me at a.apperson at rivianclubs.org, or to Bruce And you'll find all of us and our contact information in the website, rivianclubs.org as well.
Awesome.
So, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Oh, thanks for, I know you had a long day, and especially on a Monday. So, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule and life and everything to come hang out with me for an hour. Even though we talk weekly, it's nice to sit down with you and not have to talk about work, so to speak. So,
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. And, I guess next time I'll see you will be Alice's, right?
I hope so. I hope I can make it to
I
Alice's.
hope you can make it too, because we got a lot of people coming. I think 35 people right now are signed up for it. So
wow. Yeah. Well, hopefully Alice is ready for us.
I hope so too. I hope the Porsche Club that's coming in after us is ready for us too.
Well, hopefully they're coming in after us.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So, hey, if there's some Taycans there, I'm all for it. Let's go. All right, so that's going to wrap it up for us. Special thanks, of course, to Arron for hanging out. And as he said, if you want more information on Rivian Clubs of America, you can check out rivianclubs.org. Follow us on X at Rivian Clubs and on Instagram at Rivian Clubs of America. I'm trying to think of anything else. Oh, yeah, you can follow me on all things social media at Zach Winnick or at Wild Wattage on Instagram. That's Wild with a Y, WYLD. So thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks for watching. If you're watching this on YouTube or wherever you get your video podcasts, and we'll see you all in the next episode with another surprise guest. Thanks for listening, and always remember, stay adventurous.
Well, if you made it this far, thank you all for listening. This is present day Zach, if you will, non-interview Zach. It was a great interview. I love Arron to death. He's become a fantastic friend over the past year that I've been in the Rivian community, and I really want to take another opportunity to thank him immensely for taking an hour out of his Monday evening to spend it with me and to chat about RCA and all that good stuff. And yeah, it was, I apologize that I was a little awkward at the beginning of that. And it was weird. Like listening back to it, I'm just like that. It just uncharacteristically me. It was my first time interviewing somebody in over 20 years. So, thank you for your patience. I will get better, I promise. Anyway, so I'd like to thank everybody for listening. Of course, this was a long episode. We're over an hour now. I think an hour and 12 minutes at the moment. So I'm going to get out of your hair. I'll let you get on to your next podcast and everything else. You can watch the video version of this on our YouTube page, youtube.com/@Rivian Clubs of America. And you get to see what Arron and me, if you haven't seen what I look like, see what we both look like, and to see the podcast. So all of the podcasts going forward, anytime that we do an interview, we'll have video on the YouTube page as well, and keep an eye out on X and Instagram, and I'm going to try my hand at TikTok as well for some of the shorts. We'll try to keep them short, between like 1 to 1.5 minutes, and that way you can kind of see some clips as well and just kind of get a preview of what you're going to be listening to. I am not at liberty to discuss who the next guest on the show will be. But again, keep an eye out on my social media that I gave at the end of the interview, or the Rivian Clubs of America, and you will definitely be one of the first to know. So as always, thanks for listening, everybody. And remember, always stay adventurous.